It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio, broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton back with you live here on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome back to the show. So on today's show, we aren't broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. You might hear a buzz in the studio room here. Rather, we're broadcasting live from Austin, Texas, home of EFT's Logistics CIO Forum, a Reuters event where we've been interviewing some of the most innovative thought leaders and heavy hitters that are doing big things across the end-to-end supply chain industry. Our Supply Chain Now Radio team is proud to continue our partnership with Nick Asif and the EFT and Reuters Event team. And Greg, I want to welcome in our fearless co-host here today, Mr. Greg White, serial supply chain tech entrepreneur, chronic disruptor, and trusted advisor. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
That title keeps getting longer and longer.
It does, and it like many things exceeds me. Yes.
I don't believe that for a second, but we've had some great interviews already.
Yeah.
We've got plenty more to come, and I think the interview here we're about to kick off is gonna continue. It's gonna maintain the standard, right?
I think so.
It's been a high standard.
Easily.
So let's welcome in our featured guest for this segment, Pal Narayanan, Chief Information Officer with GEODIS of the Americas. How you doing, Pal?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I'm glad we were able. I know you keep a busy schedule here. You were on a panel earlier, and I'm glad we could steal just a little bit of your time here today.
Absolutely happy to do this.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
So, as we were talking about in the warm-up conversation, we like to start by being able to, kind of paint a picture of who our listeners are hearing from, right?
Sure.
So, Pal, with that in mind, before we dive into your supply chain insights and expertise, let's let our listeners have a chance to learn a little bit more about who you are. So, tell us more about yourself.
Sure. I'm originally from India. That's where I was born and grew up. And then I came to United States 27 years back. And I came to Nashville. So everyone usually asks this, Nashville of all places? I usually tell them I came to do country music, couldn't make it. And there you go. I'm in supply chain now.
Well, that's what we always hear.
I'm in supply chain now would be a great country music song, actually.
We got to add mama to the end of that, I think.
That's right.
But, we hear that a lot. Folks get here or they move to Nashville and it's either country music, and if that doesn't work, they do supply chain.
That is correct.
Country music stars.
No, just kidding aside. No, I came to school in Nashville. And then for some reason, that town grew on me and I never left. So I've been in Nashville for the last 27 years. Enjoyed every part of it. The city has grown and I've grown with it. Now it's the it city.
Yeah.
So I was there a couple times for Apex meetings in Nashville. And I got hooked on Hattie B's hot chicken.
Yes.
And then they expanded to Atlanta, and I gained 75 pounds. I'm not lying, pal. I love that stuff. So you probably are used to good food and living in the cool city. Of course, we share that in Atlanta. But you've been there in Nashville for 27 years, so clearly you and the family have enjoyed it, huh?
Absolutely. So, my background is computer science. That's what I went to school for. And then I was lucky enough to get jobs in computer science. So this is my third job, but my first in logistics.
Okay.
I've been in this one for 9 years. Before that, I was in the finance and insurance industry for 13 years. But one thing which I realized, it does not matter what the industry is. If you are going to do IT for IT's sake, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
You have to really understand the business and understand what they are about, and make sure that IT marries to the business and follows that closely. Once you learn that, it doesn't matter what the industry is. You are going to be successful because you are serving the bigger cause. And that some people taught me along the way. They were great mentors for me in all the industries which I have worked. I've been lucky in that way. And once people show you that ropes, then it's easy to catch on. And if you're willing to learn, I think there is no stopping.
That continues a trend that we've seen in interviews here, where the roles that these technology leaders are in, it's their first time being in the supply chain or distribution or logistics industries. And I'm sure that, because technology has really, supply chain is technology these days,
that's
right?
Correct. Exactly.
So tapping into folks that have been there and done it in other industries, and using that outside perspective, even though it was 9 years ago, outside perspective for you, still very valuable.
Yes.
Would I be correct to assume, coming from the insurance industry, what was the other industry you were in?
It was insurance and financing, because it was non-standard insurance. We financed it. So this is what I tell people. They always ask, so what is the difference between insurance and logistics?
Yep.
In the insurance industry, there is only two people you have to make happy. One is, if I'm not sure whether you guys know, insurance is very highly regulated.
Yes.
Each state has its own laws and regulations. That means you have to work with the product people from an IT standpoint to see what they want to sell. And as long as legal approves it, you're good. So you have two bosses. But in logistics, it is not. It is, and especially in 3PL, we have around 150 to 200 customers on any given day.
Right.
Someone is not happy with something that you did or didn't do.
Right.
That means you have to really be customer focused. You have to treat every customer's problem as that is the biggest for that day or that hour. You just cannot tell one customer, no, I think I have a bigger customer problem, I'll get to you later. That does not land
because then
well.
your customer problem gets much smaller every time you do that.
Absolutely. So that is absolutely very, very key in leadership roles in logistics. Every parcel is important. And so that is where it comes down to. It does not matter what your title is. My boss always says everyone is a leader. Doesn't matter whether you have a team or you have a big title. If you are willing to lead, those things really doesn't matter. It finally comes down to what you are willing to do and lead.
Well put. So one more question about your background before we jump into GEODIS. Would it be correct to assume that with your industry and financial services background, and the analytics and the metrics and the data-driven industries those are, you probably had, when you came into supply chain, you probably had a leg up because analytics were kind of newer to this industry in some ways, right?
That is correct. In insurance and banking, analytics is the backbone.
Right.
They didn't call it machine learning or big data or a thing, but insurance is definitely based on your driving records, what you do. So they're going to analyze, age groups, different things before they set the insurance rates.
Right.
So
actuarial science.
Actuarials, absolutely. That's a huge area in insurance.
That's the second time we've talked about that today, believe it or not.
And you know what? I wonder how many podcasts say the word actuarial science twice in the same day. I think that's a Guinness Book of World Records.
Well, first of all, how many podcasts actually create episodes twice in the same day? Right. Got to get back to your gaming in your mom's basement. Can't do 2 episodes.
Okay. So let's talk, Pal. Let's talk about GEODIS and what the organization does, and then we're going to talk about your role. So what does GEODIS do?
Sure. GEODIS is like a logistics company. It's a third-party logistics company. It is owned by SNCF, which is the French railways, which is owned by the French government.
Okay.
We were previously 4 years back, what we were called was Osborne SC Logistics. Based out of Nashville. They've been there for 60 or 65 years. And when GEODIS was looking for, how do we grow big in the United States market, which is, again, it's one of the biggest, is the biggest market in the world still. OHL was for sale, so it was a good fit. So GEODIS bought us 4 years back. And it has been an extremely good partnership. We have grown with them. And now, last year, what was decided is that Nashville will be the headquarters for all of Americas.
Outstanding.
So both North and South America for freight forwarding, contract logistics, and transportation.
Wow.
So all lines of business run into Nashville for the Americas for all the countries. So it's definitely been a learning experience.
Yeah.
So you've still got a shot at that country music career.
Absolutely.
Right?
What a great win for Nashville.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The last time I was there, we probably made a couple trips as a family and for these conferences. there were cranes. There was growth everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
And from reading some of the industry expansion and some of the wins, it seems like they're doing really well. So it was a natural fit to have the GEODIS America's headquarters there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, you got roots there.
Yes.
For the OHL.
Yes,
you
that
thought I
is
was going to
correct.
talk about country music roots again, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I was excited about it. Maybe we can get a chance to sing in this.
So
we'll see what we can do to help.
That's right. That's right. So I want to talk about your role. You know, obviously, a chief information officer, and plenty of folks can make assumptions around what that is, but I'm always curious about where these C-level leaders spend their time.
Sure.
So where do you spend your time? And also the second question is, what do you love most about the role?
Okay, so I would divide my role into three main parts. One is which a lot of people always come to the last, but I come to the first, is the human aspect of it. Building the team, getting the right people on the bus, making sure the bus is driving forward all the time. That takes a lot of work. That means you're working with your team, coaching them, talking to them, and understanding what they need. And once you get the right people, then retaining them and keeping them engaged is extremely important.
Right, especially in a tight employment environment like we have today.
That is, and it's becoming very, very difficult because everyone is expecting flexible work time. And if you don't get it here, they always get it there. But logistics is all time bound,
right?
And you know, how do you manage that, the work-life balance? So it is becoming challenging of finding people, and then also making sure the technologists you find also understand the business and grow them as leaders, because everyone has different aspirations in life.
Correct.
And one of the things which there's a lot of people who help me in my journey. So it is, and that is the only reason I got where I got. So everyone has their aspirations and what they want to do. As soon as you need to pay attention to those and make sure they get where they need. It's a two-way street. So I spend a lot of time, at least 1/3 of my time, working with the team, managing the team, coaching them, development, yes. And then, other aspect of what I spend is on, the finance and making sure everything is funded properly and making sure I do not overspend.
Right.
And we discussed this in the panel, the biggest nightmare for a CFO is the CIO. And that is the
There's always more technology.
That is correct.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah, the CFO always feels that these guys want more money, and what am I getting? I don't understand what they're doing.
Right.
It seems to be a black box. Enough is enough. Let's stop. But so over the period of time, I worked for different bosses. I have always seen these challenges. So one thing I made sure that I don't have any challenges with my CFO. I have never gone into his office and asked for money. I always send someone else to ask for the money.
That's part of the development process as well, isn't it?
That is correct.
How to build a business case and present it.
That is correct. So
you're killing two birds with one stone there.
Absolutely. So I have a great relationship with him because I never go ask him stuff. So we also, have someone who is entirely dedicated for IT. They, from the finance standpoint, who report directly to the CFO.
Okay.
So they manage everything in IT. The finances, where the money is spent, how it's being spent. Yep. And the teams explain to him, saying why we need to do it. If he gets it, he's a finance person, he's going to explain it to my CFO, and it goes on. So there is transparency.
That's great. He's a translator.
Yeah, that is exactly right.
From IT to finance.
That is correct. And we don't do anything without them knowing.
Yep.
So we spend a lot of time there to make sure that we do add value to everything we spend and measure what we do. And then the third aspect of my time where I spend a lot of time is the customer-facing stuff. One of the things they have done in GEODIS, or we have done in GEODIS, which is extremely well, how many times does a CIO get to be the exec sponsor for an account? I have 3 accounts who I maintain top-to-top relationship with. Not IT, everything.
That's outstanding.
So one is a big phone comp. They produce phones, TVs, and everything.
Okay.
It's a big company. Another is a pet products company. So they definitely value what the CIO brings to the table. You're really treated as another business C-level leader, not just looked at an IT person who makes sure, spends the money.
I always loved having those conversations. Now we've heard from IT. Let's hear from the business people.
That's correct.
Right? That seems so 25 years ago, doesn't it?
That is correct. IT people are business people.
They are business people.
Business
That's
people
right.
are IT people. How many in this generation, how many people get a phone and gets a manual? They get the phone and they start working it.
Right.
And we feel, and I feel, that is where the IT systems are going. You get a system, it has to be self-intuitive.
Yep.
And
No doubt.
it has to keep rolling. So I don't think there is not a personal life, there is not your work life. That's the same thing. There is not an IT person without knowing
Right.
the business side of
You
it.
have to.
It has absolutely become a must.
Critical.
Yeah.
It has become critical. So that is how I spend my time. And the most important I enjoy is the customer facing. It's the most tough one, but
I bet you're great in front of customers.
that is what they tell me.
Yeah, I can see that.
But my wife and son don't believe it.
No, and they never will.
Yeah,
right?
they never
But
will.
your dog believes it.
That is correct. Exactly. But yeah, my proudest was, 2 months back, someone called and said to my boss, hey, we need Pal there for this to finish this up. We had an exec offsite meeting where, we do that every quarter to build relationship with the exec team. I said, Randy, I have to be there. And then I told the gentleman from this phone company saying, I think I can't make it. They called my boss. They said, if you want the deal, you send him, you have the deal.
Wow.
And so, that felt...
That's affirmation.
Yeah, that is affirmation that, you're not treated just as an IT person. You are looked in from the business standpoint too.
Love that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were on a panel earlier here, the Logistics CIO Forum, which again is now a Reuters event. It was pretty neat growth for the EFT team. Let's go broader with this next question. So let's talk about some of the one or two supply chain trends that you're tracking more than others right now.
Sure. One of the things which we definitely, we have multiple lines of business. So I will, each line of business looks and acts a little bit different from what we do. Is contract logistics is very labor focused. You have to bring in the labor to get the products out in a very narrow window. Automation is there. And automation is coming heavy. Automation is not anymore a luxury. It's become a necessity because of the labor market.
Right.
You have 2% unemployment and 3% unemployment, and so it's very difficult to get people in this market.
Right.
So what we have done in the last 2-3 years, we have started introducing bots and everything, goods to man technology. And we try small, and then we start expanding. And we still have a lot of warehouses where you have the traditional conveyor system and everything too. So definitely from the contract logistics standpoint, we have started investing quite a bit in automation. So that is the trend we are seeing. And again, that is not going to replace all the labor. It is only going to complement the labor.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, these are jobs largely that labor won't take, or where you have a high level of turnover, it seems like.
That is exactly right.
So you have to have some level of stability of performance, even if the bots need to be augmented with human labor, then the bots are always performing the foundational things, right?
That is exactly.
Look, this has been my experience with automation throughout my career, and I've dealt with a lot of it, is whenever you have an automation, it usually doesn't take away the satisfying job that a human being is doing. It takes away the mundane, it takes away the repetitive, it takes away the physically difficult or damaging or unsafe often. And I think that this employment environment has forced us to not only to use automation, but to recognize what it is used for. And I think it's more and more apparent every day that it's used for the jobs that people don't really want to do or shouldn't be doing because of safety or
that is
injury.
Yeah, well put.
Yeah, and then from the freight forwarding side, which is a different line of business, but it's a bigger, broader part of the supply chain, it's more a transactional business. Someone explained to me when I asked for the first time, what is the difference between contract logistics and freight forwarding? They said contract logistics is like getting married. You have 3 years contract to 5 years contract you have to manage. Freight forwarding is like dating. You definitely go on a lot of dates. And it's transactional. So that stuck with me.
And it might just be one date.
That's correct. Exactly. So, yes, that is correct. So we definitely, that is a different need. Where the need in that area from the technology standpoint is data. Everyone wants access to data. Everyone wants it immediately. Everyone wants to look at the documents. So few people have given that end to end. And definitely that is a growing thing, that data. And what do you do with the data, the information?
Right.
So I think we have gone past the data stages to making data as information so that people can act on. So that is definitely, we are focused on that for more writing algorithms to see what do we have this data, what does it tell us?
Yeah. Yep. And what do we do with what it tells us?
That's correct. Right? Exactly.
So, so if you'd rather skip over this question, we could do that. But we're in the middle of peak, right?
Yes.
Busy time for folks in supply chain, especially. You'll get even busier. We've sat down with a variety of technology leaders and retail leaders. Going back a couple of years now, and they all have lessons learned from previous peak, and really it seems like we're planning nonstop for peak.
Exactly.
In this age.
That is correct.
Any observations from your experience now being in supply chain and 3PL world for 9 years? Any key takeaways that you keep reminding your team to watch out for this or remember this as we get into this busy time?
The one thing I will tell you, talking about peak, I've told this people, maybe you will get an idea. No one has made a reality show out of peak. It's a great thing to do.
Starting next month, watching that radio. There you go.
It gets busy in some of these warehouses we ship out of, and it is really a good thing for reality show. That's just an idea. But coming back to your question, for us, yes, you're right. Peak is throughout the day. Someone explained to me in the Kentucky Derby is only run for 2 minutes.
Right.
But within the next week, they start planning for the next year.
Right.
That's exactly how we feel about peak. And one, we have been very lucky to have some very marquee customers. Our peak starts at close to September itself, because we have one of our biggest customers who do a lot of product launches in September.
Right.
And then we have Halloween coming out, which we have another customer thing. And then really the peak sets in. So we get some warm up for peak, which we lead in, and we start prepping. The one thing which I tell my team is during peak, don't do something which it's not absolutely needed. Just sit back, watch.
Block and tackle.
That is correct. Do the basic stuff, and then we will be fine.
Yeah.
Because you have done this year over year. So just stick with the basics, and we'll be fine. The other thing that has helped us is, which we realized, is during peak, we bring, IT people love food. I'm not sure.
Especially in Nashville.
Yes.
Yeah, especially in Nashville. So we definitely, what we do is during peak, when there is an issue, and then you're trying to get multiple people on the phone trying to understand what is going on. That takes 30 minutes. But during peak, 30 minutes is a big time to lose.
Yeah.
So what we have done in the last 7 years is we bring in everyone we need, and all the food and everything from the day of Thanksgiving we have for 2 weeks. We have always people in the office, all sitting in the same room. Even if you don't do anything, that's fine. You just sit there. If there is an issue, everyone is in the same room already.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, otherwise, it'll go around, it's not my problem. It's get the next person on the call, get the next person on the call. And it takes 30 minutes to assemble the team.
So what do you feed them? That's what I'm...
That's a good question. Attibee's chicken is one. Yes, absolutely. Attibee chicken is... and the budget for every year gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
It does. Yeah.
If you need...
Somebody needs to sponsor that.
I'm happy to show up at any of your meetings, even though I won't know anything that's going on.
Well, he said you don't have to work.
Oh, good.
Right.
Great.
So that's perfect.
Well, if you think about that, as simplistic of an idea that is, 100 people and you're saving, 50 people hours.
Absolutely.
That is extremely valuable anytime, but especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Pal, I wish we had a mini series with you because I think you've got a story. We're scratching the surface here. But how can folks learn more about GEODIS?
So definitely we are on the World Wide Web, www.geodis.com. I'm in LinkedIn. That's the only social media I'm in. If it's considered as social media. That is exactly right.
You don't lead by tweet?
No, sir.
So geodis.com.
Yes. And like I said, we are in 67 countries. We are pretty big in France. We are bigger than our competitors in the last mile delivery in France because we've been there for quite some time. I think, and then comes the next two competition of us, which in the United States they are on the top. If you're not wanting to say names, but we pride ourselves in that for sure because that's definitely something we do very well. But it's a huge organization. We enjoyed working there. And logistics, the last 10 years has become very, if the word is right, has become very sexy.
I think it is.
It has.
We're partial, but
it has. I mean, we've, as Scott loves to say, supply chain finally has a seat at the table.
That is exactly right. And the reason I'm saying that is, during when I came out of college, and there's guys and girls who are during my time of graduation who did mechanical engineering, production engineering. They all felt to come back and work in IT because IT paid well.
Right.
But now no one wants to come there because engineering in supply chain pays as much as what IT does.
Right.
And so I'm very happy that those people are recognized for their IT talent, the engineering talent on the floor and managing the floor.
Yeah.
It's absolutely come a long way.
Yeah. It has. And the industry, the supply chain industry, the end-to-end supply chain industry is competing for top talent.
That's
unlike it ever. We're slowly but surely, and it's a long journey, but we're re-educating the consumer market as well as college graduates and tech school graduates and all the folks looking to get a job about what you can do in the supply chain world.
That's correct.
And frankly, the industry needs to compete for top talent based on
and it's the fastest of all the industries I've worked. Is the fastest evolving industry. Things change rapidly, and it's been very rapid the last few years,
including consumer demands.
That's correct.
Right?
Exactly.
All right, so folks, you can learn more about GEODIS at geodis.com, GEODIS.com. I imagine, just taking a hunch, that y'all are probably hiring.
Yes, absolutely.
And you can find jobs there
we're
at
always
GEODIS.
Looking for people.
I bet.
Including my job, if someone wants it.
I bet. After spending 30 minutes with you, I get the impression you're a great guy to work for. So if you learn more at geodis.com, Pal Narayanan, CIO with GEODIS, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Stick around just for a second as we wrap up here the show.
Thank you.
So to our listeners, stay tuned as we continue our coverage of the EFT Logistics CIO Forum, which is now a Reuters event right here in Austin, Texas. Be sure to check out other upcoming events, replays of our interviews, other resources at supplychainnowradio.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, right, Greg?
My favorite.
All the other leading sites where podcasts can be found. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. On behalf of the entire team here, Scott Luton, Greg White, wishing you a wonderful week ahead, and we will see you next time on Supply Chain Radio. Thanks, everybody.